For most of us, me included, we wouldn't last a week without hot water. If the water heater breaks, we're calling the repair guy even before having a look ourselves. Just imagine this. It's the freezing winter season, and you wake up to take a hot shower only to turn on the faucet and get ice cold water instead. The power's out, the boiler's dead, and you have no other option. What would be your next step in this instance? To freeze to death? No one loves the thought of taking cold showers, especially in freezing cold weather, not even the Amish. This is why they have a solution to this that makes sure they don't rely on boilers, electricity, or any of the cool modern gadgets trending right now. If you've ever wondered how they do it, then you're in the right space. So, how do the Amish do it? What's their secret to a warm, relaxing shower without relying on modern tech? It's not magic, though it might feel that way. It's old-fashioned creativity, a bit of physics, and a lot of getting your hands dirty. When you think of showering without the conveniences of modern plumbing, it might sound like a throwback to the Stone Age. But for the Amish, it's simply another day at home. One of their clever tricks is using gravity-fed water systems. You know, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. And gravity? It's been working for us since, well, forever. Ever try jumping up and staying there? Exactly. Now, the Amish don't let gravity go to waste either. In fact, they use it to heat their water. You might be thinking, how does gravity help with a hot shower? Well, gravity-fed water systems rely on one basic principle. Water flows downhill. Here's how it works. You set up a big water tank, usually on a platform or high up in a barn, and let gravity pull the water down through the pipes. To spell it out for those who would love to slip this trick up their sleeve, you'll need a large water tank, which should be placed at a high elevation, like a platform or a raised structure, so gravity can do the work of creating water pressure. From there, attach pipes to the bottom of the tank to guide the water down to wherever you need it, such as a shower or a faucet. You can control the water flow with a simple valve at the end of the piping. No need for electric pumps or complicated plumbing. When you pair this with one of their other tricks that we're going to get into, like a wood stove or solar heating, you've got yourself a hot shower with no power involved. It's efficient, it's reliable, and here's the kicker, you'll never have to worry about your water pump giving out on you during a blackout. Now, I know this sounds like some ancient low-tech method. In a way, it is. Gravity-fed systems have been around since Roman times. They used similar setups in their bathhouses. If it worked for them, it can work for you too. Plus, no electric bill attached. Did you know that about 10 to 15% of the average home's energy use goes to water heating? With gravity doing the work, you're cutting that chunk of your bill down to zero. Here's another practical perk. Gravity-fed systems don't require any circuits to blow or switches to flip. Once your tank is set up, the water just flows. You might want to check for leaks every now and then, but that's about it. It's like having a set-it-and-forget-it system. Except it's nature doing the work. And if you're worried about water pressure, don't be. The higher the tank, the more pressure you get. It's a pretty straightforward formula. The farther the water falls, the faster it flows. The Amish have figured this out and positioned their tanks high up so they don't miss out on a good solid shower. No weak drizzle, just a steady flow, like it's coming straight from a waterfall. So if you're ever in the mood to go off-grid with your water heating, gravity's got your back. All you need is a tank, a few pipes, and something tall to put it on. Simple, right? You'll be enjoying hot water in no time, and when the power goes out, you'll be the only one on the block still smiling in the shower. I think we can establish that the Amish don't need fancy boilers or heating apps because what they have is something far more reliable, a good old wood-burning stove. If there's anything that can make you feel like you've stepped back in time while still enjoying a warm shower, it's this. Nothing says old-school cozy quite like the crackle of burning logs, and as it turns out, the Amish have been using this simple technology to heat their water for generations, long before modern conveniences took over. If you think about it, they've got this off-the-grid thing down to a science. Here's how it works. Many Amish homes have their wood stoves rigged to heat water as well. It's like getting 2 for 1 with every log you throw in. The stove heats up, which in turn heats a water tank connected to it. As the fire roars, the water warms up and voila, hot water without touching a thermostat. You get to feel the satisfaction of knowing you didn't rely on electricity or gas, just good old firewood. Now, before you rush off thinking you'll chop down your backyard tree to fuel your shower, let me warn you, chopping wood is not as easy as it looks. You can start small, maybe get some firewood from the store and experiment with heating up some water on a cold evening. Trust me, once you felt the warmth of wood-heated water, you'll start questioning why you ever paid those energy bills. What's fascinating about this method is just how practical it is. If you've already got a fireplace or a wood stove, setting up a basic system to heat water is totally doable. All you need is a bit of pipework to connect the water tank to your stove. As the stove heats up, so does the water inside the tank. This water can then be used for everything from showers to washing dishes. While we're all trying to cut down on energy consumption, the Amish have been quietly doing this for decades without making a fuss about it. No reliance on fossil fuels or electricity, just wood and fire. And don't get me wrong, you don't need to live like a hermit in the woods to try it out. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crises disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole Apelian on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. You can incorporate elements of this into your own home, whether you live in the city or out in the country. One interesting statistic: a well-maintained wood-burning stove can convert up to 70% of the energy in wood into heat. That's not bad for something that's been around since medieval times. Plus, with wood being a renewable resource, as long as you're responsible about it, you're also doing your part for the planet. Just remember though, if you're going to give this a shot, you'll need to keep that fire stoked. I made the mistake once of thinking I could light the fire and walk away for hours. Spoiler alert, cold water doesn't magically heat itself. Keeping a consistent fire burning is key, but hey, there's something satisfying about tending to a fire and knowing that your hot shower later will be thanks to your own efforts. In short, wood-burning stoves are a fantastic way to heat water, especially if you enjoy that rustic, off-the-grid vibe. Plus, there's something primal about using fire to meet your needs. Just don't forget to keep a stash of firewood handy and always chop the wood before you need the water. Take it from me, scrambling to split logs in the cold just to heat water is not a fun game. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aren't the Amish all about simplicity and off-the-grid living? So, what's this talk about solar heating? Well, it turns out even the Amish are smart enough to harness free energy from the biggest power source of them all, the sun. And believe me, if anyone knows how to make things work with what's available, it's them. Here's the deal. While most of us are out here racking up electricity bills, the Amish are using sunlight to get their water nice and toasty. No fancy solar panels or high-tech gear, just good old-fashioned sunlight, some metal tanks, and a bit of patience. It's a low-cost, low-effort way to heat water without flipping a switch. Plus, on a sunny day, it can feel like you've got a natural spa right in your backyard. Let's break it down. The concept is incredibly simple. Like the Amish, you can place black barrels or metal tanks outside, often on your roofs or in your yards, and let the sun do the heavy lifting. Now, why black? Because dark colors absorb heat like a sponge. You know, darker surfaces attract and retain more heat from sunlight than lighter ones. These barrels or tanks then transfer that heat to the water inside, warming it up without any need for electricity, gas, or wood-burning stoves. Pretty clever, huh? And here's the kicker. On a bright sunny day, water in these solar tanks can reach temperatures of up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That's around 54 degrees Celsius for the rest of the world. Plenty hot for a comfortable shower. Now, you might not get scalding hot water like you would from an electric heater, but you'll get enough warmth to make your shower a whole lot more pleasant than, say, an ice bath. If you live somewhere sunny, this is something you can easily try. Grab a black barrel or even a large dark-colored container, fill it with water, leave it out in the sun for a few hours, and you've got yourself a solar water heater. No electricity required. Now, I won't lie, this system does have its limits. If you're living in a place where sunshine is as rare as a day without rain in Seattle, you might want to have a backup option. The Amish often combine solar heating with other methods, like wood stoves, for those cloudier days, making sure they've got hot water whenever they need it. The best part? Solar heating is one of the most affordable ways to keep your water warm. Once you've got your setup in place, the running cost is exactly $0. As long as the sun's shining, you're in business. And really, who doesn't love free hot water? Sure, it's not instantaneous. There's no magic on button, but if you're patient and plan ahead, it's a brilliant solution. Plus, you get the satisfaction of knowing you're using renewable energy without adding to your carbon footprint. Next, let's talk rocket stoves. No, it's not some backyard invention that'll launch your hot water tank into orbit. It's actually one of the most efficient little non-electrical heaters you could ever come think to make. Think of it as the Amish version of why use a gallon of gas when you can get there on a teaspoon. A rocket stove works by burning small pieces of wood or even twigs and sticks at high efficiency, generating a whole lot of heat with very little fuel. It's the kind of thing that makes you feel like a wizard when you first get it going, watching a few sticks turn into a roaring heat source capable of warming up your water faster than you'd expect. I'm not saying you'll have a hot shower in 10 minutes, but it's definitely going to save you from spending hours stoking a traditional fire. Here's the cool part. Rocket stoves don't just burn wood better, they use heat better. They're designed to create a hotter, cleaner burn, which means less smoke and more usable heat. Think of it like a stove that's taken an efficiency masterclass. In fact, rocket stoves are about 5 to 10 times more efficient than your average wood-burning stove. That's right, you can get more heat from less wood. If that's not enough to make you feel clever, I don't know what is. If you're the DIY type, building one of these is actually pretty straightforward. You can make a rocket stove with just a few inexpensive materials, things like metal barrels, fire bricks, and some insulated piping. You start by creating a small insulated combustion chamber that's designed to maximize heat efficiency. The basic structure involves a vertical pipe for fuel, where you'll feed small sticks or twigs, and a horizontal pipe where the air mixes with the fuel. This setup directs the fire upwards, creating a hot, clean burn. You'll typically use fire bricks or metal pipes to build these chambers, making sure to insulate the stove to retain heat. Once it's built, the stove channels heat through a chimney, directing it towards whatever you're heating, whether it's a pot, a pan, or a water tank. There's just something satisfying about getting a huge amount of heat from just a handful of items. Plus, once it's built, you can easily connect it to a water tank, and boom, you've got yourself a hot water system that's basically self-sustaining. If you live in an area with a lot of deadfall, or even if you've got a backyard full of sticks and twigs, a rocket stove can be a fantastic way to heat your water for free. Well, free after the cost of a little sweat and a few afternoons tinkering in your garage. Just imagine, instead of dragging out the chainsaw and splitting a ton of wood, you can be sipping tea while your tiny, efficient stove does all the work with just a few branches. Furthermore, if you're the type who's dreaming of escaping the city and going back to basics, or maybe just tired of unpredictable utility bills, this is the kind of thing that'll make you feel like you're winning at life. It's an added bonus if you're a big fan of DIY projects. The Amish have been using versions of this method for years because, frankly, it works. Just make sure you keep an eye on your wood supply. You don't want to end up in a cold shower because you got a little too confident in your stash of twigs. If you've ever heated a kettle and forgotten about it, only to come back to cold water, yeah, you know the pain. That's why when it comes to heating water, keeping it warm is half the battle. The Amish have this down to a science, using insulated water tanks to hold on to that precious heat. Think of it as the thermos version of your water heater, except way bigger and without the convenience of tossing it into your backpack. Now, insulation might sound like a boring technical thing, but here's why it's genius. You don't need fancy machinery or electronics. The Amish use thick insulated tanks to prevent heat from escaping too quickly, so once the water is warmed, whether by the sun, wood stove, or heat exchanger, it stays hot for hours. This is how they ensure they've got hot water on hand even when the fire's burned out or the sun's gone down. You're probably thinking, okay, but how does that help me? Well, the concept is pretty straightforward. You can use it at home. If you've got a water tank, wrap it up in insulation. You can find tank insulation kits at most hardware stores. And trust me, it's worth the small investment. Less heat escapes, which means your water heater doesn't have to work as hard, and you're not constantly reheating the same water over and over again. Not only does it keep your water warm, but it'll also save you on energy costs. If you don't want to go the store-bought route and love to go all out Nara Smith, the Amish typically use simple methods, like double walls or wrapping tanks with straw or thick materials. It's low-tech, but it works. The key is making sure the insulation is thick enough to really keep the heat inside. Now, the funny thing about insulated tanks is, once you've set it up, there's really nothing to do. That's right. No constant monitoring, no complicated controls. It's one of those set it and forget it deals. Once the water's hot, it stays that way. And isn't that the dream? You'll never have to experience the disappointment of a lukewarm shower again. Now that's what I call living the good life. While insulated tanks help to prevent heat from escaping for the Amish in their stored-up water tanks, the principle of thermal mass helps to retain the heat. Now, you may be thinking, what's the difference? Well, in practice, many Amish water systems use a combination of both principles. A tank could be made from a high thermal mass material, like stone or thick metal, and then insulated with a layer of protection to keep the heat in. That way, it absorbs the heat from the stove or the sun, and then insulation keeps it from cooling down too quickly. Ever had a thermos that kept your coffee hot for hours? You know, the one you use to pretend you're fancy while out on a hike? That's thermal mass at work. When it comes to heating water, the Amish use this principle in their water systems, ensuring that once the water's hot, it stays that way. Here's the idea. In Amish homes, water tanks are often made from materials that have a high thermal mass, like stone or even thick layers of concrete. These materials store heat, slowly releasing it into the water. So instead of having to constantly fire up the stove or hope the sun does its job, you can use the heat you've already collected to keep that water warm for hours. If you're thinking of trying this out in your own home, look around. Are there materials around you that absorb and store heat well? Something like a big, heavy stone or concrete structure could serve as a perfect thermal battery for your water tank. Heck, even using a water tank with a thick insulated cover could give you the same effect, trapping the heat and preventing it from escaping. To make it clear, you can think of thermal mass as the long-lasting heat reservoir and insulation as the heat saver. Both are working to make sure you have warm water when you need it, just with slightly different approaches. All of these methods come together to create a hot water system that's not only sustainable, but also practical and efficient. The Amish have figured out how to use natural resources like gravity, fire, sun, and rain to get hot water, without needing fancy gadgets or a lot of technology. This approach doesn't just save them money, but it's also better for the environment. In today's world where everyone's trying to reduce their carbon footprint and find more eco-friendly solutions, the Amish way of doing things can teach us a lot. Instead of relying on the latest technology or buying the newest gadgets, they use the resources around them in smart ways that have worked for centuries. So, after all this, what's the lesson? Turns out, hot water isn't as complicated as we've made it. For people who want to be more eco-conscious or save on utility bills, there's a lot to learn from the Amish. They've learned how to use the things that nature already provides to get hot water in a way that's easy, cheap, and good for the planet. So, next time you're looking for ways to be more environmentally friendly, take a look at how the Amish do things.